hay traducción simultánea, ¿ok?
Ok.
Para todas las personas de habla hispana, español y portugués, pueden observar en la parte inferior que dice interpretation o interpretación, van a ver como si fuera una pelotita, un mundo. Allí ustedes ingresan en la parte inferior y van a ver que tienen tres opciones: English, Portugués o Spanish. Inglés, portugués o español. Y así ustedes pueden optar por el idioma que prefieran para escuchar simultáneamente a nuestros traductores que están con nosotros hoy compartiendo el encuentro.
Yeah, you will have to repeat that in another 5 minutes, right?
Right.
¿A dónde dices que está el mundo?
Van a ver que dice en la parte inferior donde está el micrófono, la cámara, ¿ok? A continuación ustedes van a ver que dice, puede ser que a veces tienen que apretar los tres puntitos que dice más, que dice more.
Ah, ya.
Entonces ahí eligen interpretación y pueden elegir el idioma.
Ah, claro, perfecto.
Bien,
Muy bien. Muchas gracias.
a ustedes, a ustedes.
Hola, mi amor, ¿cómo estás?
¿Y tú cómo te fue?
Bien. Muy bien. Hice muy bueno.
Se oye perfecto.
Buenísimo.
Recording in progress.
יעל,
Sí.
זו דליה.
שלום, שלום דליה.
שלום, בהצלחה.
תודה, תודה רבה דליה. תודה רבה. Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Bien. Nuevamente, buenas tardes desde Israel para todas las Javerot y Javerim que nos acompañan de Iberoamérica. Les indicamos que en la parte inferior podrán ustedes elegir la interpretación, la traducción simultánea al español y al portugués, optando, ingresando van a ver una pelotita que es como un mundo que dice interpretación y ahí ustedes eligen el idioma. Si no lo ven, pueden observar que en una de las esquinas van a ver tres puntitos que dicen more o más y allí ustedes pueden observar el ingreso a interpretación y así podrán ustedes elegir el idioma español o portugués. Muchas gracias.
Tres puntitos.
Mantenha-se à direita para a Avenida 9 de Julho. A 900 metros. Mantenha-se à esquerda para o viaduto Doutor Plínio de Queiroz.
Hello, everyone. How many people are in?
We're 75 people so far, and we're about to start.
Hello, shalom from Sao Paulo.
Shalom, Anat.
We're
Shalom,
going
yeah.
Shalom from Mexico City. Hola, Yael.
Hola, hola, buenas tardes desde Israel para todos.
Hola, hola, desde
Hi
Colombia.
from
Buenos
Wizo, UK.
días.
Anat, Anita.
Sheila.
Shalom from Mexico City. Hi, Anat. Hi, Yael. Hi, everybody.
Hi, shalom.
Anita, hello.
Shalom from London. Nice to meet you all.
Shalom from South Africa.
Hello,
Shalom
Salah.
from Rio de Janeiro.
Hi, Anat.
Hi, Rio de Janeiro. I miss Rio de Janeiro.
Come back.
Come back. We're doing good work in Sao Paulo. It's okay. We're now driving to a big Wizo event here. Big Wizo event.
Hi,
Very
Anat
nice
from Mexico City.
Yeah, yeah. Hello. I've been driven from Adon to the event. Yeah.
Great.
Oi, Isa.
Isa, yeah.
Good morning, everybody in South America, and good night, everybody in Australia. I hope there's people from Australia, South America, United States, everywhere.
Anita, of course I'm here.
Ah,
Australia.
you're representing Australia.
Well, I see Elaine Brown somewhere as well.
Okay.
Well, some of them are already in Israel, so Ella, I think we should start. What do you say?
Repito nuevamente, para todas las Javerim, los Javerot de Iberoamérica, ustedes podrán optar e ingresar a través de interpretación o interpretation en la parte inferior de sus ordenadores y podrán elegir el idioma español o portugués y así podrán escuchar a lo largo de nuestro encuentro la traducción simultánea. En caso de que no lo vean en forma directa, pueden ingresar a través de los tres puntitos donde dice More o Más y allí elegir interpretación y repito, pueden optar por el idioma español o portugués y así escuchar a lo largo del encuentro la traducción simultánea. Muchas gracias. Dani?
Yes, 1 second, please. 1 second, please. 1 second. My apologies. אני צריך לעלות את המסך, את זה שפתאום חצי, אני במיוט, אוקיי. אני במיוט.
אתה לא.
דני, אתה לא במיוט.
אוקיי.
הנה, עכשיו דני רואה.
Okay, I think we can start. Shalom, everyone, and welcome to our Wizo Global event, Israel at 76, Genius, Resilience, and the Struggle for Survival in a Hostile World, marking the period of Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, and Yom HaTzmaut, from Holocaust to independence. My name is Danny Shapiro. I am the Director of the External Relations Division at World Wizo. I would like to begin. Could everybody please mute themselves? I would like.
Danny, you're muted.
תפתח את המיקרופון שלך. הנה, תודה.
I would like to begin our program with a moment of silence in memory of the victims of October 7th and the Gaza war, and for prayer for the swift return of the hostages. Yeah.
Ken?
Okay. We're moving to the next segment, please.
Yeah.
Can I continue?
Yeah.
Okay. We will now have recorded greetings from the chairman of the World Zionist Congress, Mr. Yaakov Hagoel.
רק שנייה.
Make sure to check the boxes at the bottom.
כן.
We are always almost arriving.
נשיאות וחברות ויצו העולמיות היקרות, שלום לכן מירושלים, בירת הנצח של העם היהודי. ברכה זו מוקלטת מבעוד מועד בשיאה של מלחמה עקובה מדם. כותרת המפגש של ויצו משואה לתקומה מקבלת היום משנה תוקף, שכן בנוסף לנרטיב ההיסטורי, בו הדגשנו את המעבר בין שואה לתקומה, בין גלות לקוממיות, נוספת היום מציאות חדשה ישנה. ניתן לקרוא לה אנטישמיות, ניתן גם לקרוא לה שנאת ישראל ממש. איך שלא נסתכל על זה, בשנת ה-76 לעצמאותנו אנחנו נחשפים לעוצמת השנאה, הצביעות והסרת המסכות מעל פניהם של מנהיגים, מדינות, ארגונים בינלאומיים ומוסדות אקדמיה. המלחמה שהוכרזה עלינו ב7 באוקטובר אינה מלחמה רק נגד מדינת ישראל. זוהי מלחמה נגד העם היהודי כולו, גם כאן בארץ וגם אצלכם בתפוצות. במקביל לתחילת מסע הטבח במדינת ישראל ניתן האות לשחרור זרועות התמנון האנטישמי בכל רחבי העולם. הרשתות החברתיות התמלאו בהסתה פרועה בנרטיב אנטישמים של ממש, תאי טרור רדומים מתעוררים ומפעילים יוצאים לרחובות. קריאות מחרידות של מוות ליהודים נשמעות בכל העולם. האשמות בטבח, הסתה, איומים על קהילות יהודיות ואף רצח של יהודים ממש הם מנת חלקנו בתקופה האחרונה. גם בדקות אלו נמשכת ההסתה הפרועה כנגד העם היהודי. מי שחרת על דגלו הגנה על זכויות אדם נחשף בצביעותו. ארגונים ומוסדות מסרבים לגנות, אפילו בהצהרה, את המתקפה האכזרית. שתיקתם הארוכה של ארגוני הנשים בעולם, בעקבות מעשי האונס הנפשעים זועקת לשמיים. בנוסף, ארגוני הסיוע של האו"ם, כן, של האו"ם, שיתפו פעולה עם האויב בפגיעה וברצח ישראלים, והעולם שותק. טבח ה-7 באוקטובר היא קריאת תיגר של האסלאם הרדיקלי כנגד העם היהודי בפרט, וכנגד עקרונות החופש והעולם המערבי בכלל. רבים מן המנהיגים מודים היום כי הברוטליות והשנאה והאופי בה התקיים טבח ה-7 באוקטובר לא נראו מאז ימיה האפלים של גרמניה הנאצית. אנחנו נמצאים היום בחוט הדק שמקשר בין הימים המשמעותיים שלנו כעם, בין חג החירות ליום הזיכרון לשואה ולגבורה, בין יום הזיכרון לחללי מערכות ישראל ונפגעי פעולות האיבה ליום העצמאות ה-76 של ישראל. השנה יושפע כל חג מהמציאות הקשה אליה נקלענו. אבל ערך ישן חדש יופיע מעתה ואילך בכל אבן דרך שנעבור כעם. ערך שמלווה אותנו מזה דורי דורות, ושהתפרץ באופן טבעי כל כך מאז ה-7 באוקטובר. זהו ערך שותפות הגורל. כל ישראל ערבים זה לזה. מתחילת המלחמה התעוררה בכולנו תחושה אמיתית של נתינה, עזרה הדדית וערבות הדדית. את המחלוקות אנחנו משאירים מאחור במלחמת חרבות ברזל. אנחנו מתאחדים לקיר של ברזל, קיר עוצמתי של לכידות ושל ערבות הדדית, של מחויבות, אחריות ושל שותפות גורל. יהדות התפוצות שמתמודדת בעצמה עם אתגרים קיומיים ומשמעותיים מתייצבת כמו תמיד בחזית ההתגייסות למען מדינת ישראל. תרומות, משלחות סולידריות, קמפיין הסברה, עצרות תמיכה, סיוע למשפחות החטופים, משלוח ציוד לחיילים, לובי דיפלומטי הם רק חלק קטן מההתגייסות שהוכיחה שוב מעל הכל שאנחנו עם אחד. אנחנו עם אחד בכל מקום בעולם. אנחנו עם יהודי, חילונים או דתיים, אתאיסטים ומאמינים, קיבוצניקים או מתנחלים, מי שחי בארץ ומי שלא חי בארץ. אנחנו יהודים, פסיפס עדין, בתוך מסגרת אחת. אנחנו עם אחד, כולנו. זה הזמן לשנות את השיח, להחליף דיסקט. זה הזמן להפוך את המצב הזה ממשבר להזדמנות. תרומתן ומנהיגותן של נשים משתלבת היטב בחיבור, בעשייה ובשותפות הגורל. בשנת 1902 כתב חוזה מדינת היהודים בנימין זאב הרצל בספרו אלטנוילד דבר מהפכני בהשוואה לאותה תקופה. כך הוא כתב: בחברה החדשה שלנו לנשים יש זכויות, זכויות מלא. זכות הנשים לבחור ולהיבחר מובנת מאליהן. הן עבדו יחד איתנו בבניית המוסדות, ככה זה גם עם זכות הנשים לבחור ולהיבחר בחברה החדשה שלנו. כך אמר הרצל, ומאז 1920 פועלת ויצו, מובילה את חיזוק מעמדן של הנשים, הן בתנועה הציונית והן בחברה בכלל. וכשנגד עיניה ערכי ההתנדבות, ויצו מקדמת מצוינות בחינוך ועשייה חברתית חדשנית עבור כל החברה בישראל והעם היהודי בכלל, תוך שימת דגש על צרכי הפרט המשתנים בכל שלבי החיים. אין זו אלא רק חלק ארי בהגשמה חזונה של התנועה הציונית ושל חוזה המדינה בנימין זאב הרצל. אני מבקש לאחל לכולנו שבשנה הזו נצא בעזרת השם מעבדות לחירות, שננצח במלחמת האור על החושך, שנזכה לשובם של כלל החטופים הביתה, בריאים ושלמים, שיחלימו במהרה כל הפצועים ושנדע להעריך יחד את חשיבותה ועוצמתה של האחדות בעם שלנו. כוחנו באחדותנו. יחד, רק יחד, ננצח. עם ישראל חי בשנה הבאה, כאן בירושלים.
Okay, now we will move on and hear greetings from the president of World Wizo, Anat Vaidor. Anat is currently abroad visiting Wizo Brazil in Sao Paulo, so we have recorded her remarks in advance.
להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, to be free people in our own land. What does that mean in 2024? Today, perhaps more than at any time in the 76 years since the modern state of Israel was established, the Jewish people stand alone. While material support still comes from the United States, moral support is in very short supply. We understand ourselves to be the front line of the civilized world's war against barbarism and Islamic terror. But the moral confusion of the West blinds it to this reality. It's not only moral confusion, but also willful ignorance that has brought so much of the world to this place where Israel stands alone. Willful ignorance of history, especially
quer doar aquelas águas que estão lá, já tem água aqui. Tá? Daí eu disse para ele só deixar umas 3 água com gás lá e o resto ele pode doar.
Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself.
We're sorry, we start again with the video, okay? We're sorry.
Please, everybody remain muted.
להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, to be free people in our own land. What does that mean in 2024? Today, perhaps more than at any time in the 76 years since the modern state of Israel was established, the Jewish people stand alone. While material support still comes from the United States, moral support is in very short supply. We understand ourselves to be the front line of the civilized world's war against barbarism and Islamic terror. But the moral confusion of the West blinds it to this reality. It's not only moral confusion, but also willful ignorance that has brought so much of the world to this place where Israel stands alone. Willful ignorance of history, especially the history of Israel, the country, and Israel, the people. Our history in this land, our ancient and unbroken presence here, our 2 previous periods of independence here, all of these are forgotten, ignored, or deliberately erased by others today. The lie is widespread that we are colonizers, white interlopers. But the truth is that we are indigenous people of this land. We were the victims of colonization, first by the ancient Assyrians, then the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Mamluks, Ottomans, and British. Our Atzmaut, re-established in 1948, is the world's best example of decolonization. We are an indigenous people who reclaimed our ancestral homeland, reclaimed our ancestral language, Hebrew, and gathered back home our tribe after it had been exiled by the colonizers. Jewish sovereignty was re-established in Israel because this is the place where it began. And today, Israel exists because it is right and just. People in the West call for respect and land rights and justice for all indigenous people they colonized. But these are empty words. No academic at Columbia University will actually give back his home to the descendants of the native Lenape people of Manhattan. Instead, they cast the people of Israel into the wilderness as the scapegoats of their white post-colonial guilt. Ironically, the viciousness of their attacks on us gives us another reason to need our independence, safe haven from their hatred and mastery of our own destiny in the face of those attacks. When Jews can no longer safely walk onto a university campus or pray in a suburban synagogue, where else can they go but to Israel? Zionism is the answer to the Jewish condition in the world. It always has been, since the 6th century BCE, when we were exiled and we cried for Zion by the rivers of Babylon. 2.5 centuries later, crying until the 19th century, when we reimagined our Zionism in the political terms of the modern world. If that modern political Zionism had been realized earlier, we would not have lost 6 million Jews. The Shoah was the result of Jews not having independence, and we will never allow ourselves to be in that place again. Today, our hostages in Gaza are waiting for us to rescue them from the barbarians. No guilt-filled, hate-filled words from racists, ignorance, or self-hating Jews will prevent us from exercising our independence to do so. Today, as much as at any time in Jewish history, Am Israel needs its independence. We have it, and we will continue to act. Am Israel Chai.
Thank you, Anat. I will ask everybody again to please remain muted. The reason we're not muting everybody altogether is because then the translators, the interpreters will also be muted, and it's very complicated for us every time to unmute them. So if everybody could please simply remain in mute for the duration of this event, I really appreciate that. Moving on to the next segment. One of the many initiatives Wizo has undertaken since October 7th is a special Iron Swords music project in Wizo Bet Kerem High School in Jerusalem. Wizo Bet Kerem is the only special education and vocational high school in the country. One of its leading tracks is its music program. In the Iron Sword project, Wizo invited musicians personally affected by the war to send sketches of songs they have written and composed. Each artist performed and recorded his or her song, accompanied by a well-known Israeli musician, together with a pair of Wizo Bet Kerem students who produced the song. The goals of the Iron Sword project are to professionally help the musicians that were affected by the war by providing them access to a state-of-the-art musical studio and all the necessary facilities and instruments, to provide the musicians with a chance to work hand in hand with top Israeli artists, to involve and expose our Wizo students to the needs of their broader community, and to empower them by giving them the chance to help out and share their skills. And finally, to expose the students to professional musicians and help them advance their musical careers by producing a joint album with well-established artists. Today's presentation will begin with remarks by Dr. Nurit Rauschbach, the head of therapeutic services at Wizo Bet Kerem. Then we will hear from Ezra Chakak, one of the 4 musicians who took part in the program. Finally, we will see Ezra perform his beautiful and haunting song. Thanks to everyone who took part in this very special project. Yael, go ahead, please.
My name is Nurit. I'm the head of the therapeutic team in Bet Kerem. This recording project had a significant therapeutic value for our students. It elevated their self-esteem. Treating them as professionals rather than students left them feeling capable and hopeful for the future success in the real world. The project demanded commitment and seriousness, ensuring that the results were professional. First-hand stories from the musicians allowed them to feel involved in what's happening in Israel and to see how others cope with the pain and difficulty. It developed their empathy. They experienced a real connection to others' experiences. It gave them hope. They saw that even from very sad experiences, one can grow and succeed in life. And lastly, it showed them the power of art, how art is healing and promising a better future.
Music has always been my home, a way to give voice to my emotions. On October 7, I was working at the police emergency call center, and a few days later I was called to join the army as a commander in Ishura base. The victims of the attack had been moved there, and our duty was to help identify them and honor their memory. For a month I served alongside my fellow soldiers, witnessing things that I will never forget. It took over 4 months before I could create music again, but when I did, I poured my feelings into the song you're about to hear. In my lyrics, I express my personal struggle with PTSD. This project brought structure back into my life and reconnected me with my emotions and my music. Thank you for being part of my healing journey.
מרגיש שהשתגעתי, סיוטים ביום ובלילות, הלכתי לאיבוד אבל השארתי עקבות, מחכה שימצאו אותי כמו השלט שבסלון, פתאום אהבתי את החושך, רק סוגר את החלון, שם ראש ומקווה לישון, קווה להתעורר ולגלות שזה הכל היה חלם. לא, אין להחזיר את הגלגל, הזמן המשיך קדימה, אני נשארתי מקולקל, אני נשארתי עם סופה של זיכרונות, נשארתי עצבני, פתאום אני קצר עם הילדים, לא מכיר כבר מי אני, פתאום הכל נראה חשוך, אני לא רואה את הזריחה, פתאום כולם צוחקים ואני לא מבין את הבדיחה, פתאום הכל רועש, רק מחפש את השקט, פתאום במקום לסגור אני טורק את הדלת, הכל נראה אחרת, עיניים ודמעות, יום יבוא ותמצאו אותי, השארתי עקבות. לא מוצא היגיון, לא מוצא שעון חוזר אחורה לאותו מקום, רק אני נשאר לקחת הפסקה, לעצור הכל, לחזור להתחלה, לא מוצא היגיון, שעון חוזר אחורה לאותו מקום, רק אני נשאר לקחת הפסקה, לעצור הכל, לחזור להתחלה, מרגיש שהשתגעתי, חיפשתי את עצמי ואז כתבתי, פתאום אני מתרחק, פתאום אני משתתק, פתאום הילד שלי שואל, אבא למה אתה צועק? אין לי תשובות, אין לי שקט והלכו לי המילים היפות, נשארו רק סיוטים, הלכו החלומות, מגדל קלפים הכל קרס, נשאר רק לנקות, נשאר לחיות עם מה שיש ולקוות שאמצא מקום לנוח, שאמצא מקום לבנות, להאמין שטוב קיים והוא נוכח ואמיתי, שאמצא מקום בלב שלי לסלוח לעצמי. לא מוצא היגיון, לא מוצא שעון חוזר אחורה לאותו מקום, רק אני נשאר לקחת הפסקה, לעצור הכל, לחזור להתחלה, לא מוצא היגיון, שעון חוזר אחורה לאותו מקום, רק אני נשאר לקחת הפסקה, לעצור הכל, לחזור להתחלה.
Again, thanks to everyone who took part in this very special project. I'm now pleased to invite Anita Friedman, chairperson of World Wizo, to deliver her greetings.
Thank you, Danny. Shalom, dear friends. It's really wonderful to see you all. And what about this song? It's really poignant. I would like to thank the chairman of the World Wizo Zionist Congress, Mr. Yaakov Hagoel, for sending us his greetings today. And I'm very excited to hear from our guest speaker, Saul Singer. Saul, I think he's in now. I hope he's in now. I am happy to tell you that not only did I very much enjoy reading your latest book, but I gave it as a gift to many friends and family and recommended to many others. And I recommend it to all of you. In an interview you gave to the Times of Israel in December, 2 months into the war, you said, "So it seems like everybody's being called up. But it's not just being called up to the military. You're being called up no matter who you are. You're called up to volunteer, to cover for all the people. Everybody's covering for someone. It's a society that has been mobilized in a crazy way, and there's nothing to compare it to. As chairperson of World Wizo, this resonates with me powerfully. As Israel's leading social welfare and educational organization, serving tens of thousands of Israelis and most vulnerable children, women, and families, we responded to the war the way we always do, by focusing on strengthening the solidarity and resilience of the Israeli society. And we also respond to these new challenges with a fierce commitment to social innovation. One of the many, many ways we're doing this is through our involvement in the rehabilitation of the Gaza envelope region. We are doing this in Sderot, where we have reopened, as of now, our 3 daycare centers, and we are greatly expanding our unique open house center, helping thousands of children and families in coping with the extreme trauma and post-trauma of the October 7th event, war, Black Sabbath, and decades of war and terror. We're also deeply involved in several special initiatives aimed at creating rehabilitative frameworks for young people aged 18 to 24 who were victimized by the events of October 7th, and in bringing our expertise and our vast therapeutic experience to treat women and families affected by the enormous increase in domestic violence and relationship crisis. New and great problems, be they technological or social, demand creative solutions and an unbending will to carry them out. This spirit of social innovation makes us a proud player in the Startup Nation, the iconic book, an idea that soul singer and dance singer made famous in 2009. Yom Ha'atzmaut this year is very different than any other year. We cannot for a second stop thinking about those that we have lost, the murdered and wounded, the soldiers on the front, and the hostages who have been in Hamas captivity for an unthinkable 215 days and counting. But none of this should keep us from feeling fiercely proud of Israel, of this resilient, strong, and innovative nation founded 76 years ago. I thank you, Saul, for taking part in this global Wizo meeting, in this gathering of Zionist women from around the world, and to all of you, my dear Wizo friends who have joined us today, Toda Rabba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce our special guest speaker, the renowned author and journalist, Saul Singer. Saul is the co-author of the iconic best-selling book, Startup Nation, The Story of Israel's Economic Miracle, and most recently, The Genius of Israel, The Surprising Resilience of a Divided Nation in a Turbulent World. Here is the book. Saul lives in Jerusalem with his wife and 3 children. Due to time considerations, we will not be able to have questions and answer after Saul's presentation. Thanks for your understanding. Saul, please.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Yael. I just have to start by saying that I have a personal connection to Wizo, 3 personal connections. First is that 30 years ago, my wife and I made Aliyah, and our daughters were born soon after. And the shul that we went to on Rehov Efrata and Talpiot was in a Wizo kindergarten. That's the first one. The second one, much later, is our oldest daughter graduated from what we call Wizo, which is the design school in Haifa, a fabulous design school. And the third is that I spoke for Wizo in Australia about Startup Nation. So I have a very fond place in my heart for Wizo and for all of you. So I want to start by saying that what's on my mind, of course, is the upcoming Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut. You know, I think it seems that every landmark event in our country, in our lives, is now shaped by what happened. The Pesach Seder, you know, that we just had, you know, trying to celebrate freedom while there are all these hostages in Gaza, and so much honor consciousness. And now we're about to go into Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, which I would say even more directly are impacted. And I think of my own brother who fell in battle in 1987 in Lebanon. And I think about actually how, you know, we have in Israel this interesting term for the families of people who have lost, particularly soldiers. It's called Mishpachat Ashkol, which means the family of the bereaved. And if you are part of this family, you understand what it means, because when you've lost someone, there's a sort of phase change in your life. Your life is always different, and it's hard for people who are outside of this family that no one wants to be a part of, than those in it, and those in that family share something. And what's happened on October 7th, of course, is that so many more people have been added to that family. And it's not just, I would say, in a way, the whole country has, because we've suffered such a collective loss. Now, and I just want to say that there's a memorial just off the road to Beit Shemesh to the Americans and Canadians who fell in Israel's war. And my brother Alex, his name is on that wall. 75 names were just added to that memorial. That's incredible. That's just the Americans and the Canadian soldiers. But I want to talk about hope. And I want to talk about why I'm optimistic for Israel at this very, very painful and time when it's easy to despair. And my hope really comes from the process of writing the book, our most recent book, the subtitle of which is The Surprising Resilience of a Divided Nation in a Turbulent World. And the word resilience, I think, is particularly relevant here. I think that Israel is the most resilient country in the world. And I think that what we saw on October 7th and October 8th and the weeks after and now is the power of this people, the solidarity of this people. I don't know how many of you have been to Israel since October 7th. You have to come if you haven't been, because you have to feel what's going on here. It's hard to describe, but I think a renewed determination to rebuild this country. Not just to win in Gaza. That's a huge part of our determination. I think that's also part of what needs to be understood here, is that there's complete unity on this issue. There's a lot of divisions here. There's divisions of what to do now in terms of hostages and so on, but there's no division here about the need to make sure that what happened on October 7th never happens again. That's just a starting point. But we're going through a very difficult time that I think is getting more difficult as the war is grinding on, and it's not clear that there will be a clear victory or conclusion to it, whether it's destroying Hamas or returning the hostages, though there still could be one. But my eyes are on the day after. We will get beyond this war. And I believe that we will get to a place where Israelis are more unified. Now, part of the pain that we are feeling, particularly, I would say, the soldiers returning from the front, because the soldiers returning, the reservists, there's so many stories of reservists, one of whom was protesting against the government. The other was appalled by the fact that reservists were threatening not to serve. And these two groups fighting each other on October 6th and getting more and more bitter, and they show up at the front and they're in the same unit and they're dying for each other. And their differences look ridiculous. And they feel that. And they come back, and it's so hard for them to see that these kind of divisions are coming up again. And I believe that these Miluimnikim, these reservists who are coming back, hundreds of thousands, are going to be the leaders of this country. They are going to be the leaders of the political, cultural, societal revolution that's coming. We're going to see that kind of revolution like we did in 1973. It took kind of 3 years to play out. First Golda resigned, then Menachem Begin was elected. And, you know, Israeli society was turned over by the Yom Kippur War. But this time is even bigger, I would say. It's a bigger failure that happened, but it's also a more fundamental revolution to the country, because what we saw on October 7th is a miniature of what it's like not to have a Jewish state. We saw like a time warp, like a black hole in history, where suddenly we're back into a Jewish history where Israel didn't exist, where Jews could just be massacred wantonly, where the government didn't function. And so what this means is that this fourth generation since the founders has suddenly become the first generation. The founders' generation knew what it was like not to have a state. The next generation also knew, but was a bit farther. And as each generation came, each one had less and less of a memory what it was like not to have a state, and took the state for granted, more and more for granted. And the symptom of that, you could say, was what was happening on October 6th, where we thought we had the luxury to tear ourselves apart. We don't have that luxury. And that's what's so dangerous about what's happening right now, because we're beginning to tear ourselves apart again. So I think it's important in this context to understand the roots of Israeli resistance, which is what we wrote about in this new book. Now, the book was written mostly before the judicial protests and completely before October 7th. It came out on November 7th. But it was about, it's about the resilience of Israel, which has made Israel amazingly an incredibly healthy society. There's something in America now called deaths of despair, which is, there's a terrible mental health crisis in the United States, but not just in the US, in Western democracies. Things are going in the wrong direction. More loneliness, more despair, more suicide, more everything. It's been going one way for decades, and there's no sign of it stopping. And Israel is has shown surprising immunity to these social sicknesses of the modern world. And you can even see it in the data, because if you look at something called deaths of despair, kind of name for what's happened in the United States, which includes deaths from suicide, from drug abuse, from alcohol abuse, You combine these together, and it's called deaths of despair. And if you look at these kinds of deaths across the entire OECD, all of the rich democracies, Israel has the lowest of this kind of sickness. The United States has among the highest, which is a tragedy. And why is that? That's really what the book is about. Not just that, the fact that we're number 5 of all things on the world happiness ranking out of all countries. You know, we should be 50 or 25. What are we doing up there with Sweden and Denmark? And why does Israel completely violate all laws of demography? Every single rich country right now is below replacement fertility, which means that it's aging and shrinking. And that has a fundamental impact on society. The atmosphere of a country that's aging and shrinking is an atmosphere of a country that feels like it doesn't have a future. Israel is the only rich country that is young and growing. The average OECD fertility rate is about 1.6. Ours is about 3. And I know what you're thinking now, and it's not the Haredim. Yes, the Haredim have lots of kids, but if those of you who know Tel Aviv know that the normal number of kids in Israeli families is 3. 4 is a little bit big, 2 is a little bit small. 4 is actually extra credit. In Israeli society, people admire that. They admire you if you have 4 or you have 5 kids. And these are secular Tel Avivian, who are having these numbers of kids. The law of demography is as countries get more productive, they get less reproductive. And Israel has completely violated that law. Plus, we have something, my favorite chapter title in the book, it's called Thanksgiving Every Week. That's what we have in Israel. Shabbat dinner, Friday night dinner. 3 generations get together, not twice a year like other countries, every week. Now, many different things explain why we actually are happier, and I still believe we are. One of those things, basically, happiness comes from human connection. And the despair and the depression and all the kind of maladies of modernity we're seeing, a lot of it comes from that there's just pure individualism. That individualism has just gone up and up and up with nothing to balance it. In Israel, we have this combination between individualism and the group. The culture is telling you it's not about you. It's not just about you. It's about your family. It's about your community. It's about your country. And that makes us more connected. And that kind of connectedness makes our society much healthier. Now, I'm going to suggest something for you at Wizo. We have techniques, you could even call them technologies, social technologies, that bring us together. There are youth movements. You may have heard Michinot, these gap year programs. There's service, Shnat Sharut. Basically, this is a society based on service. And service is something you do for others. It's not just about you. It's about things that are larger than yourself. And I think that's part of what Wizo is about, to be part of something larger than yourself. And what I suggest for you is you take some of these techniques that Israelis have developed to bring people together and bring them to your countries. Now, you can't bring the army, which is one of the things that brings us together most. But a lot of this does not have to do with the army. A lot of it has to do with things that are happening for children from a young age. Again, the culture is continually telling you, you are part of something bigger. We have a chapter in the book about gibush. Israelis just take gibush for granted. I don't know how many. The gibush means bringing people together, and it's like a national sport. We're all doing it all the time, so much so that it's second nature. And you know, there's we talk about something called a kita megubeshet. In Israeli schools, a kita megubeshet is the class, like a homeroom class, that is bonded together. And if chas v'chalila, the kita is not megubeshet, the teachers are upset. The students are upset. The parents are upset. They care more about this than what the kids are learning. In America, where I grew up, there was no thing to bring together. There is no kita. There's no class. That was a unit, even. In Israel, that kind of unit matters more than the math or English or whatever it is you're learning, because that's what you're learning. You're learning how to become a group. And I think that's what makes Israeli society so magical. But we're not just collective. There, Jonathan Sachs asked Paul Johnson, who wrote the book, The History of the Jews. Rabbi Sachs, Zal, asked Johnson, okay, you wrote this big history of the Jews. What is your big takeaway? What did you learn about the Jews? And he said, there are individualistic societies in the world, like the United States. There are collectivist societies, like China or the East. But what the Jews managed to do is create a society that makes a balance between the individual and the group, the individual and the community. And when you think about it, I think that's a lot of the secret of how we lasted 2,000 years. And Israel took that Jewish town and doubled down on it and created layers of institutions and culture and ways of thinking to reinforce that. And we are strong individualists. We wouldn't be Startup Nation if we didn't have ambition. We have ambition. We are individualists. We care about our freedom. We want to express ourselves, all these things. We have that streak in us of the West. But we also have this other streak. And I think that it's very important for Israelis, for people outside of Israel, to understand this social DNA that makes us so strong, because you can't build on your strengths unless you know what those strengths are. But second, export them, or in your case, import them. Import some of the techniques that we have to bring people together, because one of the things that keeps us together is that Israelis have always been in the same boat. We know that as much as we fight, as much as we're divided, we know that in the end of the day, we are in the same boat. Well, after October 7th, I think the diaspora understood that it is in the same boat. That American Jews, that Australian Jews, that the Jewish communities of the world are they're in the same boat. But also, you're in the same boat with us. They're just Jews. Jews who live in Israel, Jews who don't live in Israel. And we need to support each other. And that's one of the most beautiful things about Wizo, is that it embodies this connection between Israel and the Jewish world, which we have to double down on. We have to strengthen. We can't be the same as we were before October 7th. We have to be much stronger, much more resilient, much more united. And that's going to be a big job for us here in Israel. And it's a big job for all of you. And so I just want to finish with that I wish you strength, that you go from strength to strength, and that we continue to work together and we continue to enjoy the incredible work of Wizo. Thank you.
Thank you, Saul, so much for your fascinating and enlightening presentation. Really, wow. I know I speak on behalf of all of us. We really appreciate the words and the thoughts, and it's a lot of food for thought for all of us. Those of us living in Israel and those of us who are abroad, or as you said, the Jews who live in Israel and the Jews who live who don't live in Israel. Once again, Saul, your book. And Saul is active, of course, on social media. You can follow him on Twitter at Saul Singer. And we will conclude today's event with the singing of Hatikva. Yael, please. And thank you all for joining us today, and good evening.
קולות בלבב בנימה, נפש יהודי הומיה, פתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
Thank you again, everyone. Yael, you can unmute everyone if people want to speak for a few minutes, send more messages. We'll give another 5 minutes and then we'll close. And then we'll close the event.
Dejaremos el canal abierto por unos minutos. Si alguien quiere hacer algún comentario, alguna salutación, les agradecemos a todos su participación y haberse sumado a este encuentro.
Thank you very much. I'm leaving now, but this was great to have. And I
Me
thank
too. Me too. I want to thank Wizo for this interesting conference, the chat with Saul Singer. I think it's important for all of us.
Thank you very much, Saul. It was very interesting. I love what you said about Thanksgiving, because we do every Friday and Saturday. We celebrate Thanksgiving. Very interesting. Nice to see all of you. Anita, Anad, Yael, Dani, everybody. Take care. Am Israel. Hi.
From Wizo UK, I just want to say on behalf of Wizo UK, just to say it was a really emotional an hour and a bit to listen for everything, to see the work we're doing. I think all the speakers, Anat, Anita, Yaakov Chaguel, and Saul, which is like his presentation was really moving. And we should all be very proud to be in such an amazing movement as a Zionist women organization, and to take it back to all our members and share his word. So thank you very much. And I wish everyone very well, and to hear a good best from Israel. Thank you.
Yes, and Saul can come and speak in your communities also, which is also very important.
And I really recommend you to read the book. It will give you a lot of motivation and happiness to read this book. As he said, it's very optimistic. I recommend it wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye.
girls. Very good
Bye-bye.
event. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here. Am Israel, hi.
Am Israel,
Am
hi.
Israel.
I'm Israel. Hi.
Love you all. Love you all. Wizo, love you.
We love
Bye.
everybody.
Shalom
Shalom,
ולהתראות.
shalom.
Oh.
Bye-bye, everybody. I'm going to end the Zoom right now.